Good morning, everyone. Before we start, I wanted to ask you for a little favor. I want everyone to look at your phones. Well, maybe for answer my question, you won't even need to do this. Anyway, I want to know what's your phone brand? I can see that some of you are using Samsung, others Huawei, or even Xiaomi. But I can guess that at least one of you must have an iPhone on their hands. In case you didn't know, an iPhone is a phone from Apple's company. And that's exactly today's topic. Today, we're going to see the history of Apple, the most profitable company in the world, and why it became the first $1 trillion value company in the United States. So, let's begin. Apple's Inc. is a multi-technological company from US that creates and sells electronic products, software, and online services. Their products can be found in any part of the world and are easily bought in any Apple store. The most popular ones are iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, AirPods, iTunes, iCloud, and the list goes on and on. The company had three founders at the beginning. In 1976, I can say that at least everyone here knows Steve Jobs, right? But what happened with the others two? Well, these are Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne. Together, they create this huge revolutionary company. As I said before, Apple had three founders at the beginning. So let's talk about the less known. Ronald Wayne. Ronald Wayne was Jobs' co-worker in Atari. His stay in Apple was really short. He left 12 days after the official foundation from the company. Even though he created the first logo from Apple, which was Isaac Newton sitting under a tree, and wrote the manual for Apple I himself. So, why did he decide to leave the company? Well, that's because he saw no future in Apple. He thought that the products were way too expensive and it was going to be difficult to sell them. That's why, a few months later, he decided to sell his stock in $800. 2 years later, the same stock will be valued in $6,000 million. The other founder was Steve Wozniak. He was in charge of the logistics and creation of the products. Actually, he created the first computer from Apple in the 70s, and it was called Apple I. Jobs saw the opportunity to sell this unique personal computer, and both decided to work together. Apple I was a huge success. In total, 200 computers were sold at almost a price of $700. Apple I was one of the first personal computers in the world. That's why in the year 2018, one of the original Apple I computers were sold in Boston, USA at a price of $375,000. The last one is Steve Jobs. He is the most famous of the three. But why he's so important to the company? Well, because he innovated. He was the one who thought that personal computers should be for everyone, and not just a few fans of the technology. Also, he thought that personal computers should be so assembled already, and not for doing it yourself at home. He worked in Apple until he left in the year 1985 by some internal issues. Since then, Apple was having its decline, until he came back to save the company in the year 1997. From that year to 2011, he was the CEO from Apple, changing the point of view of the company. Definitely, Apple wouldn't be the same without these three men. However, Steve Jobs has an important role in the company. After he came back, Apple only grew bigger and bigger, and for a few years, they worked out pretty well with Mac computers, iPods, which stands for Portable Digital Musical Player, and the iTunes Store, which became the leader of the online music market only 2 years after its release. But Apple started its empire in the year 2007 when the iPhone was introduced. Within the first 30 hours, 270,000 iPhone units were sold. That means that everyone wanted an iPhone. The iPhone is considered the most profitable product from Apple. Let's see why iPhone 1 was so successful. That can be easily responded, and it is because it was like no other phone at that moment. First, it had touchscreen, which was made of glass. No other mobile phone had that technology at that moment. Second, it had no physical keyboard, like their competition. Third, it had its own software, iOS. And fourth, obviously because its design. It was minimalistic and sophisticated. The iPhone has created its own legacy. And for example, if you go to an Apple store now, you will find an iPhone. Maybe not iPhone 1, but just the latest release, iPhone SE 2020 model. After iPhone 1's incredible success, Apple knew they should keep going in that path. So they continue developing new phones and other devices, such as iPads, Apple TVs, and Apple Watch. From 2007, Apple sales were only increasing, and that hadn't stopped since then. According to Fortune magazine, Apple was the most respected company between the years 2008 and 2012. In the year 2015, the company was the most valuable in the world. Finally, in the year 2008, Apple achieved a value of $1 trillion. Apple was the first company in the United States to do that. We can see that this started as three friends creating a computer to a massive company. But not everything was success in Apple history. Some projects didn't work out pretty well. Did you know that Apple had a clothing line? Can you believe that? Well, if you didn't know, that might be because it happened in the year 1986, when Apple launched a clothing and accessories line, which was focused on the fans of the brand. But people's reception wasn't really good, so it didn't last long. Another failure was the iPhone 4. Even though it sold 1.7 million units 3 days after its release, people got issues with the weak connection of the phone, so they couldn't make calls. The solution Apple gave was to buy a $30 case to improve the signal. Now that we know a little bit of history of Apple and its path to becoming one of the leader companies for electronic products, I want you to think, why everyone wants an Apple product? Could be any device, an iPhone, a Mac computer, AirPods, Apple Watch, whatever. Some might say that it's because of the quality. Apple used better materials, so that's why their products are a little bit more expensive. And also use a better technology. But there's something else. This is status. Due to their higher prices, these products can be easily bought. And in the beginning, it was focused only for fans of the technology and not the general public. So, this leads us to the next question. Is Apple better than any other electronics company? Well, the answer depends on your preferences. If you're willing to pay more for a new technology, then Apple is your best option. If you choose Apple, you will keep in touch with the latest technology, and also you will be able to enjoy all the facilities that Apple family brings. However, this option is an expensive one. One of the people's favorite feature of Apple family is the synchronization. If you have more than one device from this company, you can synchronize them because they share their operative system. That makes people want to keep buying from Apple instead of other companies. Apple had to go through a lot before it became one of the big four technology companies, alongside with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Even after Steve Jobs' death in 2011, Apple continued to create new innovative devices. Under the current CEO leadership, Tim Cook, he has led the company to be more environmentally responsible and had displayed innovative devices such as Apple Watch and AirPods. So, after all we have learned today, we can certainly say that for the next years, Apple probably will be ahead on technology, releasing updating products or maybe other innovating ones. So now I wonder, and I want you to do it too, which Apple device will surprise us next? Thank you so much for your attention. I will be answering questions if you had any.